Okay, so we're recording, and so first of all, welcome. And it's the 20th today, September 20th. My word, the month is going by fast. Oh, good. But Dr. Vishish sign is in. Good. Brad and a couple other folks. Dr. Brad Hyatt won't be able to make it today. His daughter is on the swim team, and they have a meet that he's going to. Okay, let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. Hello, Dr. Vishish Singh. How are you doing? Good that you joined us.
Hi, Bob. I am.
Good. Well, what I'd like to do, again, for the benefit of people that will be looking at this recording afterwards, which we encourage everyone, the new members of the team, and also if you're on the team, is always make sure that you at least go through the recordings. A good thing I'd like to remind folks, and Anne has put this together, I want to reiterate that everybody pretty much categorically on our the research team are top managers or managers from their companies, which means we're all busy. And because of that, we're trying to be very sensitive to the amount of time you need to get up to speed on the information. So as such, what we've done is, and this is Anne doing it, is that we always take the recording, and then we take the subjects as we get there, and she timestamps it. So you can, when you get the recording, instead of looking at an hour or whatever and say, what do they talk about? The subjects, she'll go through and like, oh, here's one subject. So say what it is, title it, and then put the timestamp so you can go right to that subject. Again, it's just going to make your time more efficient. For the new folks, again, you'll find this if you go back to the pre-con meetings, but we've had about, I keep saying pre-con because that's my life. But if you go back to the past meetings, you can, you'll hear this, but just be efficient on it. In the data room, which all of you should have access to, because I see quite a few new people today. If you don't have access to the data room, please reach out to Anne. Everyone should have her email, and she'll give you access to the data room. The data room is quite, there you go. There's in the chat box, there's the link. It's typically right now anyway, it's just for NASA, Johns Hopkins, whoever wants to do that. But then it's only folks that are for right now anyway, are on the research team. As a reminder, instead of just throwing a bunch of documents in the data room, it's split up into 3 categories, which is primary reading, secondary reading, and just reference documents. And what that means is primary reading is it's been identified as it's part of the theory, and we all as a group should be up to speed with it. It doesn't mean to read every nook and cranny, but just kind of glance through it. It's going to be up to each individual to get up to speed on the theory, and I say that every meeting, but it is important. You may not be 100%, but even if you're around 30 to 40% of what we're doing, that's good. Another reminder is please fill out in the data room. Please fill out the information form. It literally will take a minute per form. And what we want to do is understand, because the team is about 45 and it's going to expand, and I'll explain why. There's a couple of things. One is we want to find out what side of the industry you're an expert in. And the other thing is how involved you want to be. Do you just want to be an advisor, or you just want to hang out? Excuse me, not an advisor. Do you want to be just an observer? That's the word I was looking for. Or do you want to, Anne's very good about, I see there's the link here on chat. Or do you want to be kind of involved, but not too much involved, or you want to be really involved? We need to know this from you. Now, let me go back to the data room subject. There are, every category, whether it's primary reading, secondary reading, or just general reference. Again, priority would be try to get through the primary reading, and then if you have time, get to the secondary and reference documents. Oh, I lost my train of thought here. Oh yeah, each of those data rooms are split up into 12 categories, and those categories are expertise or our lens of expertise, and it's our diversity. And we want to understand, of those 12, what are you an expert in? And then we'll talk about today what's after the white paper. We're going to make this a fairly short meeting, I think, because Vishish and I, we have a deadline on the white paper, and we're trying to get that deadline finished. NASA, the public relations side of NASA, has requested that we get the white paper in as soon as possible. Also, leadership within Johns Hopkins, and the reason is because advancements with Ted Danson is moving forward, as you all know, and they're starting to write scripts and coming up with taping locations and things of that nature. Just a reminder, we are looking for funding for that. It's through nonprofit, and it's educational. It has Bloomberg network distribution, and also Amazon Prime, and it's focused on the educational side of what we're doing, but also the profound process we're putting together for solving a problem for NASA. And same thing with Johns Hopkins. So just FYI, this is getting pretty serious now. So I want to go into what the phase is after the white paper. Our white paper, just as a reminder, is just setting where we are with our general theory and the process, the structure, because there's a lot of moving parts, and you'll see that if you go back to the other recordings. And also in the data room, it has a picture of the white, or of the chalkboard with all of the process on it and other things as well. You can see the complexity. But when you really dive into it, it's fairly simple. Maybe I don't want to throw that word out there. It's complex, but it makes sense. Certainly in the construction and estimating fields. It may be a little harder if you're not in that field, but that's all right. You can get up to speed on it. With that said, is the white paper takes care of the structure. What's the flow? What's the methodology? And then we'll dive in only superficially to the 12 areas of expertise. And then once we go into the next phase, which will be implementation, and another paper that will get a little more detail, not necessarily in the general structure, but the offshoots of the expertise, like integrated project delivery, which, Patrick, I think you're going to be probably in that group. You're definitely an expert in it. You're known throughout the industry for really understanding that. And we have a couple other people on the team that are experts on it. And one may be mechanical and plumbing estimating, and verification process through BIM modeling and augmented reality, and on and on and on. But just take a look at the 12. That next step is where you wouldn't necessarily on this team do the writing, but you would have input, and your name would be specifically as a contributor on those sections. Okay, so it's kind of there's many phases. That second phase, and then the next one, it would be moving into implementation if we get that far, which I'm pretty bullish about. I think that we're getting great attention from NASA, and we're already somewhat leveraged within Johns Hopkins. We're not doing this in a silo, so that's great. It's just that now we're becoming, because of the problem we're trying to solve, we're becoming very known. Okay, so with that said, I'd like to pause a minute, and I noticed some new people. So what I'd like to do, and I'm going to go, so through the meetings, when somebody starts the first time, only the new people. I'd like to introduce who you are, what part of the country you're from, because we're all over the country. If you're affiliated with a university, let us know. And what's your expertise, what company you work for, and also why is this intriguing to you? So we'll try to keep it down fair, not a book, but try to keep it to about 2 minutes or so. So Patrick, I know you're new. Why don't you start and introduce yourself?
Absolutely. I'm Patrick Duke. I live in Richmond, Virginia. I have been in the healthcare built environment world since 1996, primarily working on the project advisory side for owners. I have been working, as Paul said, in IPD world since 2008 was my first full IFOA project, and so been really engaged in that. Why am I here? Because I love our community. We do big things, and this is big thinking. When I learned about this, I felt like, man, this would be great to be a part of. And so I'm honored to be a part of this esteemed group. I'm honored to think big with all of you and use our collective skills to come up with some really innovative things. So I appreciate the opportunity to serve with all of you.
Yeah, thank you. That's well said. And you were chairing the conference on the Advancing Precon, a national conference, and I think I was presenting on NASA estimating
That's
at
right.
the time. And but anyway, since that time, I see you all over the place, and you're a busy guy. Let's go with Vishish. Have you introduced yourself yet at one of these meetings? Because the reason it's new, that if you've already been here, you've already introduced yourself, so you'll be on a recording that people can see. But Vishish, did you
Yeah,
already introduce yourself?
yeah, I think last week was my first week.
Okay, all right, good. Nick, Peetros?
Yeah, thanks. I am a new member, certified professional estimator for about a year
Nice.
and a half now. Just learned about this program last week at the ASPE Summit, and it just is something that deeply interests me. Space and moon construction is something that I've been thinking about since I was a small boy. I'm a civil engineer. I have my degree from Drexel University. I've been working in commercial construction since I was 16 years old. So it's been a very long time. I'm in my 50s now. So 30 plus years of commercial construction experience, and just really happy to be here, and hopefully I can help contribute something to this important work.
Yeah, I know you can. And myself, Dr. Vishish Singh, and also Dr. Brad Hyatt gave about an hour and a half presentation to ASPE National Conference. I think it was last week. I think it was last week. I don't
Yep,
know.
last Friday.
That's right. Okay.
Yep, week
And
today.
yeah, and so we did it on estimating concepts on the moon. And I think we had a great time, and the audience it was a good crowd, all estimators from all over the country, and it was we just had a great time, and there certainly a lot of focus on stage. We noticed from on stage looking out, so that's great. Now I'm going to introduce Joe Lee. Joe Lee just sent me a chat. His internet connection is unstable, so he can't talk because it keeps cutting out. So I'm going to introduce Joe. Joe Lee and I have worked together for many years. He's mechanical, electrical, plumbing, mostly mechanical and plumbing, but dabbles in electrical. But his expertise is mechanical engineer. And he coordinates mostly healthcare for a major contractor here in California, touches pretty much all the hospitals that the company works with. And his expertise, again, is mechanical and plumbing. estimating and coordinating. So he's going to bring a lot to the table. He has many years' experience. So thank you for joining the team. Is there any other new folks? Scott, John, Jackson, Juan Miguel.
I previously introduced myself, so yeah, I think that's done.
Okay, good. John and Jackson and Miguel, I think you guys are regular members also, I think, so.
Yes, yeah, Paul, yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, so let's get into the meat and potatoes today. So we had scheduled Dr. Amir Zavichi to talk about coding units, which you'll see if you go to the other recordings. I think that's one of the most profound and not most, but a very profound and important step of the process that this group is putting together. Very complex. And so you may want to look at the last two pre-con, or I gotta stop saying that. The last two meetings, and again, you can go to the time tags and look where that is again for your convenience. But he got pulled in. He's senior project manager for the Port of LA, the City of LA, and he got called into a meeting. So he had to. He'll do it maybe next week. The other, and it's very tied into the general theory that we've come up with. Vishish, let me think. Another important component is verification and how we predict and verify our predictions in real time. That keeps redoing predictions. Working with NASA and their G2 system, which is being further developed from where it is, and it's impressive already. And so that's an important stage. Vishish is an expert in that, and he gave a little thing not a little thing, but gave a perceptional or overview of that last week. But we'd like to expand that because it is important. And with Dr. Amir Zavichi, he'll go into the coding aspect and the complexities that we have to address for what we're doing. Vishish will go into the detail of verification, and it's just absolutely fascinating to have that tie-in. Nick, or who was at the ASPE meeting? I'm sorry, I forgot.
Yeah, that was me.
Yeah. So you pretty much had a really general overview between the three main sections, which is reporting and coding, general theory, which I was doing, and then Vishish was on the verification side. And I don't know, I thought it was, I know the theory, and I was fascinated by the two verification, or the two other colleagues, but Vishish, I think, was very intriguing to me. And
I thought the whole presentation was fascinating. You all did a great job. So,
yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yep.
Well, it's good that everyone has an open mind, because we do have to reinvent things we're doing. As we mentioned, 98% usually of mega projects are over budget and behind schedule, and that's not an option when we build on the moon. All right, so here's what I'd like to do today is do an update on the TV show that's being done, a call out for funding, which is a nonprofit, and then what I'd like to do is open it up for Q&A. That's something that we haven't done a lot. What we want to do from here forward is have more discussion and less me talking or a presentation, where we have to really allow time for the team to chime in. And what we want to do is here forward, we'll come up with a topic and we'll have a presentation on the topic. And then we want to get into deep conversation about it. because that's how we'll leverage everybody on the team to get input. Now, remember, all of you will get input in your expertise after the white paper, because that sets the fundamental alignment of understanding of what the structure is. And then, just like I explained last time, we have off-ramps off the freeway. Imagine that, where we get off the freeway, we identify what those expertise are, but then we get to the stop sign. Well, now we're in the city, and you can go anywhere, left, right, at 45. And that's where these your expert lens is really going to come in handy. That's step 2. And we're pretty close to that because that happens pretty much after the white paper, which will be published in several trade and academic paper or things. There's a lot of interest in this. All right. So with that said, Anne, do you have anything you want to add before we get into Q&A?
I think the main thing is there's a Slack invite, and that'll really help facilitate a lot of discussions. And especially once we move into the peer editing of the white paper, you'll be able to go through and see which lens of expertise you would want to edit under. And that would really save us a lot of time in trying to figure out where we can sort people. And I'll put that link in the chat.
Yeah, thank you. It's really important. Slack can be very I find it sometimes there can be so many threads that it gets a little confusing. Well, Anne has come up with a really good way visually that you understand where the channels are. It matches the channels visually match the data room, so you know exactly what's going on. I think it's been organized very well. Anne will manage the Slack channel to make sure we don't get off track. But I encourage everybody on the team to at least send in. Everyone should have an invite to Slack and follow through with accepting the invite, and then at least you're there, and then that can contribute quite a bit. Let me see. Vishish, do you have anything? I'm just going to the regular folks here. You have anything to say or?
Nothing as such. I didn't have anything on my agenda there.
Okay. All right. Any of the other members that have been here a while, anything current event that you want to talk about before we get into Q&A? Okay. I'll take the silence as a no. All right. So again, Vishish and I have this much to do in this amount of time because the timeline's been moved up and we're running behind. We have quite a few people that are really waiting for the white paper. So we may not go the full hour, but what I'd like to do is, and something we should do more, is I'd like to have a Q&A. And for the new folks or the folks that have been here a while, come up with a couple questions, like, it could be about the theory, it could be about the process of us writing or justifying the theory, just whatever's on your mind. I'd like to, and this is where we need everybody to contribute. And so with that, before we go into Q&A, let me back up here. Just one thing is the TV show is an educational show. There's no commercials in it. Advancements with Ted Danson. There is a skin in the game on our side, which means that NASA, Johns Hopkins, and this team has 100% edit rights, which is really important. And the reason is that typically, like if Nova did a show or whatever, you don't have edit rights. They take your footage and then they go edit it, and that's what airs. Well, we have more skin in the game. And then afterwards, we get the full footage raw, and each entity can do whatever they want with it. Individual companies that contribute can use that for PR or whatever. And the viewership is, I think, 70 million. And it's pretty far up there. And also afterwards, it's streamed on Amazon Prime. So there's a lot of great distribution on this. So our call out, and this just is hot off the press, is we'd like the private companies. It's a little more problematic for public universities, but Davis and California State University, Fresno will be able to come up with a little bit, maybe 5,000. But we're asking companies, private companies, to contribute about $5,000 each or something like that. And then as a return, when they're taping, we can't say brought to you by, or or use one company over another, because there's so many. This is a non-funded study, so we don't want to put a hierarchy. But what we can say is this company, in addition to, and at least mention the name in the piece, companies like, we're still working out what we're able to say. So for the folks that are with private companies, if you could check with your leadership and see if they can chip in $5,000. It should be no problem to come up with the funds. It's about $50,000 that we'll be raising, and we have about 40,000 left. And this is hot off the press, so we're purposely not going to ask NASA to fund this, or Johns Hopkins, because they're the principal supporters, and it's problematic if we were to do that. So again, this is nonprofit, and it's also educational. All right. Let me see what else. That's it for that. Now let's go into the Q&A, and this is an opportunity just to kind of take a breath and contribute and ask questions. So let's start there. Who wants to be first? Scott, you want to be first?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Awesome.
But yeah, my question is about process of this group. So following the release of the white paper, can you talk about how how requests for reviews or specific activities will be issued? Yes, I guess basically how are we to know kind of when there's an opportunity to contribute, or when you'd like us to contribute? What's that going to look like?
So the white paper, we've taken this time to really explain the theory, just to get everybody up to speed. After the white paper, which is only 10 pages, it's not a major work, and it was decided by Johns Hopkins to keep it. Okay, thanks, Patrick. It's good to have you on board. So we'll be in touch. Awesome. So
as a former Oakland rap group said, I got 5 on it, so I'll come up with the 5K.
That's awesome. That's great. Well, guess what? We have 5 less to raise. So
there you go.
I don't expect this to be a problem. You're awesome, Patrick. Thanks. So
okay.
All right. Thanks. Okay. Scott. So what you'll find is it's gonna ramp up pretty fast after the white paper. The white paper, we were supposed to have it done today. It was just too much. So and we've been saying we're going to get the white paper done, but it's been problematic. Now NASA is saying, boy, we really need it, because they're working on PR now, because they are one of the main. We'll have an astronaut on the show. They're and then Johns Hopkins, they're taping. They'll be taping 2 days. One at Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Lab in Baltimore, and at UC Davis here in California. We have an astronaut who had 4 space shuttle missions and 80 hours of spacewalk. He's an advisor on the group, and has been helping us through this, although he's quite busy. So it's been, but he's been contributing, and he'll hopefully be an interviewee, and along with a couple other NASA folks and Johns Hopkins. So so back to the white paper. That's the pressure to get the white paper done, to align theory. After that, it's going to go pretty fast, because the next step, we move into more of an implementation. There's which will divide up into the different expertise. So the white paper is just, even when we move into the expertise, and you'll see those 12 on all in the data page on all of the primary reading, secondary reading reference, you'll see what those 12 are. We need to, we will have to divide the entire team of 45 into an expert field. Now, what that means is once it's in an expert field, what that does is allows a team not necessarily to write the paper because that takes time, but at least have be a think tank within your expertise. And then there'll be a more expanded paper which gets into more implementation. How would we do it? And that's where the peer reviewing will really be intense. I think that stage is going to be about a 3-month process, if I had to guess. And maybe less, but I think it's going to be 3 months. Now that's an expanded paper. And then the next step after that would be potentially implementation with NASA and Johns Hopkins. And but we have to kind of reassess when we move into stage 2, which is more involvement. Now the other thing is on stage 2, let me back up. Stage 1 is the white paper. Everyone on the team will have input on the white paper as far as suggestions, but we have to be careful with that because you may not understand the theory 100%. And then the other thing is the white paper doesn't necessarily go deep into the levels of expertise. So the first one will be pretty light, but then the second one will be heavy on what your expertise is. I think I'm starting to repeat myself, so I think but did that answer your question, Scott?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. I guess the only kind of follow-up question to that would be method of communication for kind of as we progress. It sounds like Slack is going to be a primary method of that. I'm not really familiar with Slack. I'm happy to start using it, but is it going to be that and email?
Yeah, primarily those are the two. And then we'll have these meetings that will have more Q&A and a little more. We want a little more interaction, just to get people familiar with the research team or study team, the diversity, because we have universities, private, public folks that are involved with this. And again, that's going to expand. So just putting that structure together was pretty intense. And we want more feedback from the consortium of what we have. I think, did I answer your question?
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Okay, good. It's one of those things. I'm getting old now. I'm almost 60, and I'm starting to remember. I'm starting to remember what I forgot. Not what I meant to say, but like, oh, I forgot what I was going to say. So, I guess that happens from 60 on. Either that, or I should see a doctor. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. Hey, is there any more? Are there any more questions? Hopefully there are. I need another question. I need 3 questions. Who's next? Who wants to be the hero? Jackson, John.
If no one else asks, I can ask another question.
I'll throw in a question. So I know we have our group that's kind of looking at the estimating pre-construction type of work, but are there other groups that are working as far as putting together like, okay, we're looking at constructing the base on the moon. Are there other groups that are looking at what we're constructing so that it all comes together?
Yeah, so what I'm learning is, this is the first time we've had Q&A, and I'm learning that you guys are really good because you're asking very good questions. What a great question also, along with Scott. And to answer your question specifically, this group is focused on the estimating process. But one thing we have to note is that the estimating process has to be coupled with construction means and methods. And with that said, there is another group that we'd like to invite you, and this I was reminded of this by Johns Hopkins here a couple weeks ago, is there's a thought consortium from NASA and Johns Hopkins called the, what's the acronym, man? I always forget it.
LSIC,
LSIC.
Lunar
what's the
Surface
acronym?
Innovation Consortium. I can put a link in the chat.
Say that again.
Lunar Surface Innovation Consortium.
Yeah. Now, what that group does is they break up into all sorts of segments. Energy could be communications, it could be electrical distribution, it could be radiation mitigation, and they probably have about 10 different expertise. No estimating, we're coordinating as far as that's concerned. So we're the estimating wing of this. But to answer your question specifically, and I think it was Jackson that answered, if I'm not, or asked the question, if I'm not mistaken, we just sent a link, and you can, I think it's the last Wednesday of every month on Wednesdays, there's a group called Lunar Construction Foundation and Excavation. And that's where they primarily get into means and methods and materials and stuff like that. So I encourage you, they're about an hour and a half meetings there. Anne just put the link there. We'll help you be a member, and we'll lobby for it. We can sponsor you, no problem at all. I think it's just you send an email and they verify who you are, and they verify that you're who you are, and then you start getting the meetings. I would say we're at a point now where if you have the time, I would probably attend those. What happens is you'll have presentations the first, say, hour, and the last half hour they break you into small rooms, and then you just ask questions to, and just kind of stimulate conversation. So that's where we can get more into means and methods. But remember, what we're doing is just like in estimating here on Earth is pre-con eventually does have to talk to means and methods. Now, the only difference, well, there are many differences, but one of the most profound differences is the connection of very, very early when they're developing the technology, all the way through not only construction, but decommissioning, where the estimating process is solid all the way through. So what you'll find is that there's more interconnection with means and methods and the estimating process. It's more coupled for obvious reasons. And so that was a good question. And my recommendation is to, if you have time, to check out one of those meetings. And then eventually we will probably in stage 3, if not 2, will start rolling in that process. But the construction logistics and means and methods have not been dived into yet. I think probably we're the group that will be initiating questions and starting awareness where they need to start thinking about means and methods and things of that nature. I think we'll be initiating, this group here will be initiating the intensity of that. Also, something to note is that we are a group that are built from folks in the industry, which is fairly unique. That was a vision that LISIC had and NASA, and just organically we grew into that role for them. So there's a lot of opportunities to really, be part of the process. Did that answer your question? Jackson?
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
perfect. Yeah, and thank you for the question. It's a good question. And it's something that we should have, shoulda, coulda, woulda, right? We should have had people more engaged with LISIC. But I think now that we understand what we're doing, remember, we can now represent ourselves as part of the thought consortium that's addressing estimating. So meetings, conferences, whatever, go ahead and say you're part of this journey. Again, reiterating, this is such a complex problem, is that there's 1, 2 from people cannot solve this problem. We need all lenses that have experience. So go ahead and you can tell folks in the industry that you're part of this consortium, and that would be great. And also in LISIC, when you're up in the breakout rooms, by all means, you know, it's okay to do that, because you are part of the group. You're part of the journey. So thank you, Jackson. Any other questions? Maybe one more, and then we get our 3.
Paul, yeah, I have a question real quick.
Awesome, John. Thank you.
It's pretty simple. Once the white paper's finished, let's say like Friday next week or whenever it was anticipating, how long do you think we will have to review it, do discussions, like from the point it's finished to the point it's completed of peer review? What is that duration?
Yeah, thank you. Wow, another good question. I anticipate a short fuse, and what will happen is the draft will go to NASA and Johns Hopkins and the TV show very fast. The hierarchy of governance is NASA gets it and Johns Hopkins. They'll pore over it, understand its premise, not intimately, because it's going to take a larger thing, but just to see the premise for public relations. And that will give them a better idea of direction. And that process for them will take about a week, as what I've been told. It's not to say stop working, it's to unify and align folks within NASA to understand exactly what we're doing. Folks within, and by the way, there are 2 members of this group that are with Langley NASA, and they're both directors within NASA, and they give us quite a lot of input. Same thing with Johns Hopkins. Jabu Abraham is heads up the foundation and excavation side of LISIC, and he's one of the core members of this group. So decisions run through him, and he gives us advice on direction. So that first step is not a linear movement. As soon as we get the paper done, we'll publish it in the data room, not publish it outside yet. We'll put it in the data room, and I would say that we'd want to get comments within a week. And the reason I think 2 weeks may be a little long, because we want speed to publish. Will be published in trade magazines. We already have some lined up that they're waiting for it as well. And then, you know, it may go 2 weeks, but figure 1. But remember, it's only 10 pages. It should not be a major read. We may get to the next Friday when the paper has a draft. We may find out that we need 2 weeks, right? But I'm hoping we can keep that down to a week. Okay, but maybe before publish, it will go to NASA right away. It will go to Johns Hopkins right away. But they understand it's a draft, and the experts are in this team, and they'll just have to wait for us to get opinions on it. Okay, good question. Did I answer your question, John?
Yeah, no, that answered it. Thank you. Then I guess the quick little follow-up would be, what is like kind of the end goal once it's published publicly? Is that kind of, does that like sum up our responsibility to the group, or
No.
does it
That's
further
when it
longer than that?
begins. That's when it
Okay,
begins.
okay.
Because remember, after we publish, there are going to be so many holes on it, because we have to keep it to 10 pages. That's a direction from Johns Hopkins, because otherwise a smaller amount of people are going to read it. And so the advice was keep it to 10 pages. After that, remember, then we break off into understanding the basic theory, which the white paper will allow systemically us to align theory. After that, we'll be breaking out into our each individual expertise. And the reason it's important to understand the general theory is that as the experts in their trade come up with what's needed or process, we always want unification of main theory. And not only that, we want unification of all the different 12 expertise where it's one systemic process, because that's going to be key. Because this is so intense. So I would say phase 2, after the white paper, we move into phase 2. That's where the individual members of the team will really expand. You get involved to the capacity that you're able, but that's when the experts, which are you, will really provide input. And we don't know how that's going to look as not an organization, but as a collective thought consortium in the industry. We don't know if each one's going to have a separate meeting, which I presume will, and then maybe a general meeting every 2 weeks. And we may, I don't know how that's going to be structured. We haven't really thought about it yet. But what we're more than likely will happen is that there'll be pit groups, to use lean thinking, or they also call them cluster groups, and where it'd be up to maybe a principal within that takes on the responsibility of organizing that group, and then I would myself and the core team would communicate with them and what the team is achieving, and then it would be up to each individual group to come up with their own meeting schedule and that type of stuff. And I assume that some people want to be very involved, not too involved, and just kind of hang out, just like that questionnaire. So, John, did that answer your question?
Yeah, that was perfect. Thank you for
Okay,
clarifying
good.
that.
Thanks. And I think all of these are really good questions. It's time that the entire team kind of knows systemically what our path is. Jack, let me see, Nick or Joe, you have audio problems, but Juan Miguel, Nick, you already asked did you already ask a question, Nick? Or?
No, I don't really have any questions right now. I'm just going to get into it.
Okay.
But I'm sure I will have plenty of questions.
Okay, good. Juan Miguel, any questions on your side?
Probably more so out of curiosity.
Yeah, curiosity is good.
Yeah, I think I know the answer to this question, but I'm curious for like private ventures like SpaceX. If they're going through similar processes in that this venture is doing. This is more public, more open, more transparent about what we're trying to achieve here. I was just, like I said, it's a question of curiosity. If they seem to have different ways of attacking and approaching space travel, and if there was any information that was shared from them, could that benefit this study in a way?
Absolutely, but it's up to that agency. If they want to hold things close to their chests, that doesn't really contribute to us. There are some research development folks that are actually part of the team. And remember, we are focused not necessarily on estimating the rocket. We're estimating construction and in the technology and the things that are used for construction. So SpaceX isn't necessarily into the construction side. They're in the delivery process. And so there's kind of a delineation there. The other thing is to wrap your heads around this, there is a major operation that would be needed on the moon that is going to move hundreds of thousands of cubic yards of moon regolith, which is very problematic because there's 1/6 gravity, it has electrostatic charge, and there are a bunch of microscopic razor blades essentially because there's no erosion on the moon, and it's essentially pulverization from very high heat when something hits the moon surface, and it's very toxic. to humans, and it's very problematic for spacesuits, machinery, gears, you name it. And it tends to levitate because it has an electrostatic charge, has a lot of metals in it as well, but it's mainly silica, and it likes to stick to pretty much everything. So 1/6 gravity, you'd think it kind of float down, but because it has an electrostatic charge, it kind of generates its own levitation for some time. Those type of things are part of the process, means and methods, and how we account for productivity and data analysis. The unique part of what we're achieving, as opposed to somebody like SpaceX, which they may or may not be coming up with. Oh, that's weird. My camera went out of focus. But they're not necessarily, as I understand, addressing space construction. We do have the ear of NASA, and again, coordinated collaboration with Johns Hopkins, which is the agency that's been chosen by NASA to come and solve these problems. So with that said, did that answer your question in a roundabout way?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and what SpaceX wants to share with us, that's great. Ideally, it'd be great to have somebody like Blue Dragon or SpaceX as part of this team. And that may happen, yeah, as we move through this process. There are a lot of means and methods folks on this team as well, because we have architects and general contractors and subcontractors on this that are great thinkers on this team here. Who's left? Is it John? Did you ask a question yet? Or Nick, you said you didn't have a question. You're just trying to get up to speed on anything or on stuff.
Yeah, I probably have 100 questions, but let me read everything and then I will I will hold my questions till
Okay, I totally
Yeah.
understand. It can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
John, did you have a question? Maybe you already asked one, but I just want to check with you really quick.
Yeah, I asked one about the schedule coming up after the white paper.
Okay,
and
good.
the responsibility. So yeah,
I'm,
thanks for answering that.
You bet. Well, I'm impressed by pretty much everyone. Joe has audio problems, so I didn't expect him to have a question. But I'm impressed by how we engaged today. And I'm looking at the clock, and we don't want to keep you over. But what I'd like to if this interests you, absolutely get involved. And I look forward to you looking at reviewing the first paper out, and we'll listen to every advice we get. And again, if you could check with your higher ups and see if your company would be interested in funding not the study. This is self-funded. Everyone here, including myself, and is volunteer. Just because we have a passion for what we do, and this is cool, right? This is something that when I started estimating almost 30 years ago, mostly on the GC side, although now I'm with the owner side, I never thought I would be thinking about something like this. It wasn't even in my thought process. And so to have something so profound and, quite frankly, revolutionary, it is absolutely, very exciting. Yes, Scott. Oh, Scott needed to go. All right,
Paul, I actually have a
Yeah.
question real quick. Paul, real quick, just two quick questions. The draft white paper, will it be uploaded to Slack, or is it going to be sent to our emails?
It will be uploaded to the data room.
Yeah.
And then we'll give you an email that says that we've uploaded it to the data room. And then we'll give directions on how you can help.
Perfect. And then hopefully I don't sound too ignorant here, but do we have a name for this group? Like, is there an official title that if I'm mentioning it to someone, I could say I'm a part of XYZ?
Well, we have the Institute for Construction Innovation. A lot of us in this group are part of the Thought Consortium. So I encourage you to join that. There's no fee, it's volunteer, it's nonprofit, and it's just a thought consortium of individuals that are either with academia or are heavy in the industry, and we address things exactly like this. So I would encourage you to be part of that, and if you can email Ann and she'll give you the information. There's no fee, no membership fee. It's just colleagues trying to solve problems of construction in the world. So
Awesome. Thank you.
okay. Well, we're coming up. It's exactly 2 o'clock, so we need to wrap this up. Thank you so much. I appreciate everyone's interaction, and I'm going to end the meeting. We'll see you in the next meeting. Ciao.